Hello everyone and welcome to the most assembled podcast in the world, House of Games. Today I'm grouped up with my host, Mr. Otto! But what is an assembly without a special guest? Well, I don't know. I don't even know what assembly means, but I'm sure our special guest, Ida Fortnite, will tell us all about that in today's episode of House of Games.
The game assembly gave me the experience I need to do game development.
Cross-disciplinary collaboration.
Both the teachers, like the knowledge that they have, but also the fact that they bring in people from the industry.
Inspiration, collaboration, workflow.
People were so passionate, which really made me feel like this is what I want to do.
Welcome everyone to this week's episode of House of Games, and especially welcome to our guest for this episode. So I think, as we usually do on this podcast, without further ado, Ida, would you like to just, tell us your real name and a little bit about what you do?
My name is Ida Fontaine, and I am the lead educator at the Game Assembly Stockholm. So that means that I am sort of administrative jack of all trades here at our Stockholm school, together with my colleague Freya. And then we have some more people like me down in Malmö at our other school.
Cool. And I think, first of all, for our viewers, could you tell us just sort of a helicopter view or an overview over the Game Assembly as an education place, I guess? How many schools you have, how many students, what do you teach, a little bit of that.
Yeah, so we're a game development school. We are currently in 2 on-site locations, which is Stockholm and Malmö. And we do also have a school in the UK that has started quite recently. And I'm very sorry, but I don't know that much about our UK school because it's run very differently from the 2 schools in Sweden. But in total, we have about 175, 180 students in Sweden. And we educate game programmers, game artists, level designers, procedural artists, game animators, and technical artists. So a lot of different programs, but it differs a little bit between Stockholm and Malmö. Up in Stockholm, we have programmers, artists, and level designers, and also procedural artists. And then the first 3 are repeated in Malmö, but down there they have animators and technical artists as well.
Cool. And tell us about your role a little bit more, like what you do and what's your sort of involvement with the education.
So my involvement is that, first of all, I'm all the educators' boss in Stockholm.
Nice.
So I do all of the, HR things here in Stockholm. But the most fun part of my job is that I'm education lead for our game programmers and level designers here in Stockholm, which means I sort of oversee the education. I mean, we have very competent and very good educators, but I help them in making sure we give our students the best possible education during their time here at the Game Assembly.
I read on the website, it says level designers, game programmers, spelgrafiker, I guess that's
game
graphic
artists.
Designers, game artists, and game animators. And here's the technical art, procedural artist, and linear algebra and artist. What are those 3?
So basically, I would say technical artist and procedural artist, they're quite similar to each other. Imagine you have a programmer here, and then you have a game artist here, and they have a little love child. Then a technical artist or a procedural artist is born. So our procedural artist program is our newest, and it's as long as the programming, artist, and level design program. So it's 2 years on location here at school and then 30 weeks of internship. And it's a very new and exciting thing where they focus a lot on how to develop things procedurally. So that means that instead of just creating everything like maybe an artist would, you try to find technical solutions in order to procedurally generate things. So one of the good examples is that, for example, if you want to make a staircase, then you can make a staircase and then you program it to behave in certain ways. So you have different sliders and you can put the slider up and then you get a longer staircase. And you can put another slider up and down and that would change how tall the steps are on the staircase. I've also seen a super cool thing on LinkedIn where it's a procedural artist that created an octopus and then coding it so that when you sort of drag this octopus over a box, then the different arms or tentacles will behave very naturally following the octopus over this box to move in a natural way, even though it's all digital.
That sounds awesome, but it's also I have this, I'm a programmer and an artist at the same time, but I don't like procedurally generated things because I think that's cheating. But at the same time, today I've been sitting all day programming the NPCs in my game to act in a very natural way that you as the player don't understand. They're actually sort of acting in a similar way, but I can simply play with the inspector to make them act differently.
Yeah.
So as a player, you don't see that under the hood it is the same script. So I'm basically doing the thing that I hate, which is in quotes cheating, but at the same time I think it's so fun because it's like this is really the problem solving of the solvingness. Like it's so much problem solving, and when you get it right, which I got like 30 minutes before we started recording, it's just like champagne and like woo, because it works. And it's just been sitting here for 8 hours straight trying to figure out how to make the janitor act in a certain way versus the mayor of this game.
And for example, for example, if you create a building and the building is supposed to be a bit run down, and then your product manager, your lead, shows up and is like, oh no, but we should have the hole in the wall over here instead. Then instead of having to redraw the whole thing, then if you're a procedural or a technical artist, you can find ways to sort of just move that hole in the wall over there. And it just magically looks good. But so that is the procedural artist program. And then we have a technical artist program that is more of a build-on program. It's a bit shorter than our other programs. And I mean, they do some similar things like a procedural artist, but maybe not as focused on the procedural part and Houdini, which is the program that our procedural artists use a lot. But a technical artist, they can also do things like VFX in games and special effects and shaders and things. But so it really is like the love child of an artist and a programmer, finding those technical solutions to art.
Now that you know a little bit about what you can learn at this school, so could you just give us sort of a rundown of what does like the average day look like for a student, and what is sort of the arc from applying to all the way to after you graduate? What happens then?
Okay,
basically.
So if we start with the small thing, like what is a regular day at the game assembly? We are very strict. We're on location every day, Monday to Friday, 9 to 6. 40 hours a week. It's like a full-time job, and it's a vocational school. So there's very little theory. It's more learning your trade, being as good as possible within the 2 years that you're here before you go out on your internship. So a regular day always starts with a stand-up at 9:15. because we teach our students the Agile methodology and working with sprints. So stand up 9 to 9:15 every morning.
Sorry, what
Yes.
is I am as uneducated as a human being can get. What is a stand-up? I was thinking you have like a stand-up comedian coming to class, but
I wish.
and then I thought you're standing next to the bench like we did when we were kids and wait for the teacher to say sit down. And now you keep on talking, and I'm like, no, it's none of those two. What is a stand-up?
Okay, so a stand-up is a short meeting that is part of Agile methodology if you work with sprints. So to wrap it back even further, working with sprints is that you sort of, when you develop a game, instead of doing like, okay, we're going to make this game, and then you work on it all the way until the finish line, and then you don't revise maybe as much. I mean, I hope you do anyway, but with the sprint methodology, it means that you work in 2-week increments and always check up, like, where are we now after 2 weeks? What is the goal for the next 2 weeks? What do we have to cut? Do we need to add something? What is not working? What's working? Blah, 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 blah. So you sort of can work closer to the client and to sort of, I mean, in theory, get a better end product. Sorry, this is a very TLDR with sprint methodology. But the stand-up is the thing you do every day. So you start every day with literally standing up in a circle, and you discuss the 3 different questions. That is, what did I do yesterday? What am I doing today? And is there anything hindering me from doing what I want to do today?
So I'm standing there in a circle with my classmates, and we take turns answering
Yes.
those 3 questions. And that
Yes.
the idea is also to let my classmates know where I'm at. So, for example, if an artist relies on me for programming his dragon to do whatever, he get like a little bit of insight where I'm at. Is that the point of
Yes.
it, or like why would I? Okay.
Yeah, so the point is also like cross-disciplinary for everyone to more know what they're doing and to sort of just, it's a way to help communicating, because you could also raise questions like, oh, I've been stuck with this tool that I'm trying to implement for several days. I can't make it work. And then others will know and they can help, or like, maybe we need to have a meeting about this so that you're not sitting 3 more days with this. Maybe we can find a solution. Maybe we scrap it. Maybe we don't need the tool after all. So that is the idea of it. And it's very, very common in the game industry to have stand-ups in the morning, which is why we do it here. Because the way we work here tries to mimic the game industry as much as possible. And that is also feedback we always get when we're out doing our internship halftime assessments. The students are like, it's just like at school, but not as fast-paced.
Cool. I really like that. Like I mentioned, I went to plumber high school, and the first thing our teacher said is, plumbers don't get homework, so you ain't gonna get homework for the next 3 years. And then we didn't have homework. So, and that was awesome for someone like me who is, I'm not into studying. But that reminds me of that. Like, it was just the whole idea with the plumber school was just to do what you do when you're a plumber. So we're just in the workshop most of the time, welding and bocking pipes.
Yeah.
So that sounds
I
awesome.
mean, yeah, it is great because it's also, it means it's a less of a cultural shock for the students when they get out on the internships. But it's also, it ensures that we deliver a lot of very, very well-equipped junior developers to the industry. The feedback we get from our supervisors and the people that then hire all of our students, the feedback we get again and again and again is that they're so well prepared. They're better than most juniors. Like, as going out on their internships, like they're still theoretically in school, the feedback we get is that they're better than a lot of juniors. And they haven't even finished. So it's very nice to hear that. But we've reached the first 15 minutes of the days in the everyday of the school. So after that, they will work on their individual courses for about half the day. including having lunch, of course. And then towards the end of the day, they will work on their game projects, which is half of the education. 50% of their time is spent in game projects at the game assembly.
Cool. And just a quick follow-up question. So could you go a little bit more into the individual courses? What are those? How do those work? And the game projects, is that like one giant project through like the 2 years, or is it small, like 1 month games, or how does that work?
So we try to teach our students a little bit of everything. The last semester before going out on their internship, they can sort of specialize themselves a bit. That's mainly for the programmers. Sorry?
What is a semester? Is that like
Termin
a season?
in
Like 6 months? Okay. So for 2 years, that's
a school semester. So you have the spring semester and the fall semester. So termin in Swedish. For the Swedish.
So there's 4 semester for a 2-year education. That's 4 semesters, and the last one is okay. Cool. Sorry.
And that's mainly for the programmers that they start specialized that late. Actually, our artists, for example, they start having smaller courses where they get more free reign into what they want to do. So they can start specialize a bit earlier. But the general concept with our individual courses is that it will teach you a little bit about everything. So an artist will learn 2D, 3D, sculpting, work a little bit with VFX, work a little bit with animation, just learning a little bit of everything. Our programmers as well, they have different courses in various things. Artificial intelligence programming, network programming, graphics programming, like they learn a little bit about everything, basically. And then you can specialize towards the end when you make a portfolio, which you use in order to find yourself an internship. So that's a little bit about the individual courses. And then we have the game projects, and there we do 8 game projects in total throughout the course of the program here at school, the 2 years. And they vary a bit in size. So I think the shortest one is a month. It's teeny tiny. And the longest one, I think it must be the last one they make, because then they do it full time. So they don't have any individual courses towards the end. Then they just sit 40 hours a week creating a game. But they vary a bit in size, and we also give them different genres that they're making. So they're not always making the same kind of game. They make a mobile game, they make a platformer, they make a first-person game, they make a Diablo-esque game. So they do a little bit. They try to do a little bit of everything.
But these game projects, like, is it the whole class working on one, or is it smaller groups and they work on, or can I work on my own?
They are smaller groups. You can't do it on your own because they're also like part of the course criteria are things that means that you need to learn how to work cross-disciplinary. You need to learn how to work with others and adapt your work based on the needs of the group. So they're about 10 to 15 per group. And in the first year, we swap the groups every project, so they get to work with different people and get to know each other. And then the second year, they are put in the same groups for the full year.
Okay.
Right. It's first of all, it's like I say, it feels like a very serious education, that there's a lot of stuff that feels like really cool, that you, for example, like towards the end, working 40 hours a week on a game project feels really, it must be that you really get into what it's like in the real world, so to speak. So yeah, Very,
I mean,
very
we
cool.
have to adapt a little bit because we're not a game studio. We are a school. So, of course, there are adaptations. We can't mimic exactly everything. But we try as much as possible to prepare them for the industry they're going into afterwards.
Yeah, cool. And I could really tell it's a bit different from a different school that we've talked to in another episode. That here it feels a lot like, as you say, really trying to mimicking the work in a studio, and really almost like a job, except for like it's a sort of an apprentice job almost, I would say.
And we have very, very high expectations on our students, and it's a very hard program. You won't make it unless you actually spend the time needed. Like, you just won't. It's a hard program, and we expect a lot of our students. But if you get your diploma in the end, you're gonna be very well equipped for the industry.
Well, that's good. I mean, it sort of adds some sort of prestige to it, like a Oxford, but for gaming. Eventually, I mean, if this school keeps growing, it might be that kind of status when you have made it through 2-3 years of hell in that school.
I usually call us the military school of game development education. Like, we have students or we have people that want to apply to the school that come up to me at like a high school jobs fair or whatever it is. And they're like, oh, so like, can you work from home? Do you have like, we're like, no. Like, go to another school. I don't know what to tell you. Like, or like be on location here for 2 years and then find an internship where you can work remotely. Like, that's perfectly fine. But the concept we have here is very strict and very hardcore.
Cool. Yeah, I love how you're apologetic about it, and I think it really feels like a good strategy. I mean, it's better, as you say, if it's really the case that they say that real world is like the game assembly, except not as strict. Then that's you can't be better prepared for work in real life than that, I think. So yeah.
No, they're very well prepared, and the internships are usually vacation for them, because that's also the thing. We're a vocational school. Our programs can't be longer than a certain amount of time. So it is very condensed and very intense. But also, we don't want to take things away from it. We don't want to lower the level of what we teach our students.
Right.
So it is hard. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it sounds awesome, because it really is. If it is as tough as you say, or if the students reckon it is, that's just better when you start working. Like you said, it for some students it feels easier to go to work than to school, and that you're so equipped for that kind of stuff. I told my wife, like, when we moved back to Sweden, and she's worried about how do people work in Sweden and stuff. I'm like, well, you're Japanese, like, working in Sweden is like 10 times easier than here. It's going to be so easy for you to get used to it. And I mean, you're going to crush it. Don't worry about it. And
like,
it sounds kind of like that for you guys.
People actually don't expect of you to work 10 hours overtime every week.
No, exactly.
Magic.
Yeah. So it sounds really cool. I like what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that for our listeners, so you've listened to this and you feel like this is really the school for me. I really think I would fit in this school. So then how do you get into the school? Is there some like process for that you have to have this amount of experience, or do you have to have a portfolio, or can you come straight out of high school or another industry and just learn all of the stuff at your school, or how does that work?
So all of the programs in Stockholm, they're like base programs. So you can come straight out of high school, but you need a high school diploma to be able to be to be eligible to apply. So you need a high school diploma, and then some programs in Sweden, for example, don't automatically have English 6, so that is something you need to have as well. And for programming, you need to have Math 3, and then for our procedural artist program, you need Math 2. And these are like a lot of Swedish courses that will make a lot of sense to you if you're Swedish, but if you're not, like, there are good services to translate your high school diploma. But main thing is that our school and the courses we give are in Swedish. So you need to have a good understanding of Swedish, and you need to be able to prove that in some way. No, so we do have students from the Nordics. That's generally not a problem. Like, we have the occasional Norwegian, Danish, I was going to say Faroe Island students, but that's a lie. We've never had a students for the Faroe Islands. Please apply. That would be super cool. But we also do have students that are from outside of Scandinavia, but have maybe lived in Sweden for a long time and have a good understanding of Swedish or things like that. But yeah, so you do apply through a website that's called ihantagning.se. And for all of our programs, except for programming, you need to apply with a portfolio as well, where you showcase 5 or at most 5 different pieces that showcase who you are as an artist. And that is used in the selection criteria. And then after the portfolio, then you will be called to an interview if you score one of the highest. And after the interview, we know who gets in or not. And a question I always get is, when are the interviews? And they're always the same week as Midsummer. The only program that doesn't have portfolios are the programmers. And then they do an online test beforehand. But they also do another test when they get here for an interview. So we can make sure it was them who did the test online.
Oh, okay. Clever.
Yes.
Cool.
Wow.
Very nice. Yeah, interesting. So I was just going to ask about that you said earlier about international students. So you make the education mainly in Swedish, so that's the target audience, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. So how many applicants do you get per year, if there is an average or anything like that, versus how many spots?
It's so hard to say. It changes every year. And I think this year it's going to be more than ever. It gets more and more every year, but it's also, the curve is not very straight upwards, but it really depends on, like, the pandemic, more people studied, the recession, more people will study, things like that. But we get hundreds and hundreds of applications. And then the game artist program is for sure the most popular. I think we opened the applications a little more than a week ago, and I think we could already fill a class. Like, it's and then programming, those classes are very, very big because we're quite a program heavy school, or programming heavy school. So then it's like, it's not as many applying, and we have a bigger class to fill, so it's a little less competitive. But we do have hundreds and hundreds of students applying every year, so obviously not everyone get in.
Yeah, right.
I'm just asking for a friend. So in my case, I have none of what you just said that I need. So this procedural artist program, you said that you need to have English something and also another thing to get in. But someone like me who has nothing, I only have like the basics of everything, but I do have released and published 4 games. Does that hold anything in terms of like applying? Like, can I sort of get in there anyway without having all these things that I actually need?
Yes. So that's a great question because yes, you can. So we can always bring people on if we feel that they have what it takes to be able to graduate towards the end. And the thing, especially in your case, where you have a lot of like real life competence, you have a lot of experience from life, you would have to click that when you apply, which is called reell kompetens in Swedish. And then you showcase that in your cover letter or person, like in your portfolio. Like you mentioned that, like, hey, I know I don't have English 6, but I've released 4 games. I think I would be fine. And then we can say that, yeah, we agree. I think you will be perfectly fine. And you also have one of the best portfolios because the portfolio will still be scored.
Okay.
So yeah, no, but that's a very good question, and that it's very doable.
Do you have a lot of those students who have done games and released before they apply? And if so, why would they go to school if they're already in the industry? Or is this just a better way of getting into a bigger company? Like in my case, I'm just grinding away as an indie developer, but I honestly would love to work for a bigger company, mainly because I want to be a part of a team. It's quite boring to sit in this corner all day long by myself. So I can imagine for me why I would like to get into school like this, and then that would be like a stepping stone into a company. Or is there any other reasons for people to do that?
We do not have a lot of students who have worked in the industry previously that sort of come to us to start over from the beginning. It does happen though on the technical artist program because that is sort of an add-on program. So there we have people that have worked as artists previously but want to become more technical and learn all of those programs that you use as a technical artist. But what we do see quite often are students that have gone to another game development education of some sort, and they go to us as well. I sometimes feel like we're seen as a bit of a game industry job, what's it called? Job agency.
I mean, it kind of sounds like it. Your track record and the prestige and all that stuff. It's almost like it almost sounds like that's where you want to go if you want to get into the industry.
Yeah, and I mean that also shows how competitive it sometimes is to get in, because we have students that have already 3 years of game development education that get in and do sort of 2.5 more years here, and then they start working in the industry. So yeah, I think especially the more theoretical university programs, we see some coming from there. It seems a bit harder to find a job in the industry afterwards in some cases. I do feel that the vocational schools have a bit of an edge there because we are actually in part run by an advisory board with people from the industry that sort of shape the education. So yeah, it's a bit different.
Yeah. And another thing related to applying to the school. So imagine that you want to start this education, but you don't know if it costs or how does that work, the financial bit. Is there some sort of like student loan you can take for it, or do you?
Yes, you can get a full Swedish student loan. So it doesn't cost anything. So you get, I mean, it's not much, but you get full student loan if you go here, and you're applicable for a student loan to begin with.
Yeah. Cool. Very nice. Yeah, and sort of, do you have any plans on expansion, or what does the sort of future look like for the school? Is there something like, if you could dream a little bit, like you had unlimited resources and you can build a school to whatever you want to. Do you have any goals or dreams or anything about that?
No, we like this is very boring answer, but we feel we have a good thing going. We prefer to just perfect the thing we already have going and
Yeah.
make it as good as possible and make it as good of an experience for the students and for later on the industry when they get the students from us as possible. So we want to just perfect what we already have. We are not
Right.
really looking to expand a lot or like add on a lot of different programs. Like I'm not saying it
Right.
won't happen. Maybe we will add new programs. We did with Procedural Artist last year, but generally we just want to get a good thing going and perfect what we have.
Yeah, exactly. I would say it's a great answer. I mean, it's focusing on quality primarily, and then quantity will happen perhaps. So I think that's a good approach to.
Yeah, and we do have like our programs change a lot all the time because we do adapt to the industry and we try to always improve. So even we've had, for example, game programmer. We've had that since 2008 in Malmö, but what the program looked like in 2008 is very far away from what it looks like now. But the main concept of mimicking the industry and having half the education being game development, working in game projects, we feel that's a concept that works and we just want to continue building on it.
But when I went to the plumber high school, we went from copper pipes to plastic pipes. So we had to learn how to deal with that. So now my question, how do you said you mimic the industry. What does that, like a more concrete example? Is it like you teach your student new game engines, or is it like games are becoming more like a service nowadays? So we're going to focus on make a game as a service, or how exactly? Can you give like an example on how you mimic the industry?
I mean, so for example, the Procedural Artist program was sort of it was an ask from the industry that they see all of this new tech coming and the need for this kind of competence, including this program Houdini. So then we started doing or creating that program. Then very recently, our game artist program has gone from Maya to Blender because we see that it's becoming more and more common in the industry. So we have changed. And it's interesting that you mentioned engines because, I mean, in 2008, Unity wasn't a thing. But our students work in Unity for the first 2 game projects. And then this is sort of what makes us a bit special because our students then start working in our in-house engine for the last part of the first year. And in the second year, they create and work in their own engines.
Wow.
Which is a bit different from a lot of other schools that mainly focus on Unity and Unreal. Yeah.
Your own in-house engine, like, can the students improve upon it? And is there like a long-term goal to make that like the next Unreal engine by students?
I mean, we use it as an educational tool, and it's constantly improved upon. We have educators here that have 15 years of experience working with Frostbite, which is the engine of DICE, for example. So we work a lot with improving it, but the students can also implement things. I mean, they have a course about creating tools. So they create tools and implement them in the engine.
Cool.
And things like that. Or, I mean, let me tell you, I'm not a game developer, but I mean, they do a lot of cool things. For example, like if the artists say, oh, but I need to get this into the engine. Then the programmers have to sit and be like, okay, but how do we make that work?
Wow.
Like right now, there's no way to put these files into the engine. How do we solve that? So things like that.
This sounds super cool. I do have one question that it's more a little bit more philosophical, maybe. I mentioned before that I sort of see myself with I'm a little bit of an artist, but I'm also like a problem solving kind of guy. And one thing I wanted to ask, and it might come across harsh, but I've always been somewhat skeptical to education, especially in the sort of opinion/creative space. And like, for example, normal education, like my son, for example, here in Japan, go to Japanese kindergarten and so on. I can see the importance in that because they sort of teach kids they shape them to become somewhat alike, which is, I think, is a good base for adulthood to function in a society. I know in Western culture, we are sort of leaning away from that a little bit and more into individuality or whatever it's called. But when it comes to creativity, I'm thinking like I'm a little bit more skeptical because I fear that the education, like if you're being educated by, like say one teacher is educating 20 students, isn't he sort of influencing the way they think and the way they sort of conceptualize art and so on? And then I guess my only argument I have for why I fear this is that I think that if you watch a Hollywood movie, if you watch one, you've basically seen them all. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like they're all written by the same people from the same school, going through the same program. And when I wrote a movie, when I was younger, I lived in the States and worked as an au pair. I sent it into some sort of competition thingy. And they gave me feedback, and they said that they talked about a red thread that is supposed to be through a movie. So it's a build up and a climax moment and then down and something like that. And I was shocked. I was like, why would I follow some sort of rules on how to make a film? Then it's just going to be like everything else. And now in the gaming industry, I almost feel like a lot of these AAA blockbuster games feel so samey from a story perspective in particular. Yeah. And Odo and I were talked about this many times about Unreal Engine. If you Google, for example, or YouTube, Unreal Engine, top 10 games coming out, I mean, they all look the same because here you have an engine that creates the same art, and it's just different people putting the trees in different, so it's just all looks the same. And on top of that, you have the storytelling that maybe I'm just imagining it, but I feel like it's become somewhat samey. So then my go-to answer is, well, maybe it has to do with education, that because education is sort of making people samey. The same way my son is very similar to, especially in Japan, the uniforms, they all look the same from a distance. But you really have to get up closer to see the difference between these kids and their personalities and so on. But I don't know, am I onto something here? You mentioned before that especially with the creative part in this program, they start to specializing. And I did like the sound of that, because then it sort of sounds like they're branching off to be their own artist or their own, creative person.
Yeah. And I think it's such a good question. And I think you have a lot of very valid points. Because, I mean, we do have full-time employed educators here. We don't have consultants coming in doing one course and then they fuck off and then there's a new one coming in. We have the same educator all the time, which doesn't stop us from having like a gazillion guest lectures every semester. We're reaching a point where second year students are like, we need to focus on our work. Mm-hmm. Like we have so many guests. But like, for sure, we do have the same educators, and they will shape them in a way in how to approach their craft. But at the same time, we do have the courses where they're given the artistic freedom to specialize in what they want to do the most, or just push themselves to try a lot of different things. And I would say, based on what the portfolios look like when they start applying for internships, they are so different from each other. So I feel in one way, yes, we sort of shape them into a mold, but maybe that's more regarding how to approach the craft and maybe soft skills, because that's very important to us. They work 50% in groups. You can't be a dick. No, but like you have to learn how to work with others. But the end product, like the portfolios, they look so different that I feel we at least give them the chance to find out who they are themselves as artists.
Cool. Yeah, fair enough. I mean,
Yeah, very nice.
it's. I guess it's my example with our own kids, how they're being shaped
Yeah.
to become this super organism, but then eventually they will spread out and do their own thing. So I guess it's.
Yeah, and I mean,
I suppose it's the
and
same.
also like even our programmers, but we can see a bit that it goes in waves too, especially if the industry say, oh, we really want tool programmers, then we will see more students focusing on tools programming. And for example, I think we're seeing maybe a shift where more artists try to look into environmental art right now, because we have had people from the industry coming in saying, oh, you know what, we would really like some environment artists, yay. So there are definitely also waves of what is the most popular right now, but that changes too.
Yeah, this environmental art. This is just a thought I had now when you mention it. This procedural artist and environmental art. I think that's a good match because my work, what I don't like with procedurally generated stuff, like I said, I think it's cheating, and also it makes everything looks quite samey. But I can imagine you have like an environmental artist and a procedural artist, and then we make the skyscraper, and then with just through a menu on the side, you can basically tell who lives here. In this house, there's a middle-aged man who likes to drink beer and watch football lives, and then this engine then creates that atmosphere in his apartment, while across the hall from him there's a totally different person lives there, and so that sounds cool. But I mean, I imagine that's something that's going to happen in the future, that where you just type in things on the side, but then you need environmental artists who have that sort of sense of how does a house look like, where there is a single middleman beer alcoholic guy living, or whatever it may be. So that sounds...
Same thing with AI. Like AI it might replace the mediocre game developers, but it will never replace the really good ones.
True.
Interesting. Yeah, very nice. And it feels like we could talk about all these things for another 3 hours probably,
Yeah.
But we are approaching 1 hour. So before we end the episode, first, Ruin, do you have anything else you want to ask or anything you want to bring up?
No, I'm happy with that. That was awesome. I mean, I have a million more questions, but
Yeah, same.
I did. Let me see, Jack of all trades. I do have one more. I'm fine. It's good.
Let's save it for the next one.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I think also just hearing that you have an in-house engine, I think we could probably do an entire episode on that.
I can deliver Björn to let him evangelize about our in-house engine and discuss. He's also incredibly passionate about how colors are shown on screens and such.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a big nerd in the best kind of way.
Perfect. We would love to have him on the show. Absolutely. But I think that's gonna be it for our episode. But I think before we let you go, so please plug everything you want and give us your best elevator pitch for why people should choose the Game Assembly.
Okay, so I don't know. I think if this sounds intriguing to you, if you accept our concept that it is, like I said, the military school of game development, you're expected to be here 40 hours a week. You're expected to put down a lot of work it will make you into an excellent game developer. And I mean, I've also been like, it's very hard, like you have to be ready for it, but we do something right, because the amount of alumni that everywhere want to come back and tell them about tell the students now about their time at the game assembly and want to share all the tips and tricks. Like, people like going here and they have a good experience and they want to come back. So we have a good thing going. We believe in our concept, and we might seem a bit old school, and it isn't for everyone. I fully understand that. But I mean, apply if it sounds interesting to you. I think the application period ends 5th of May. And we do have actually an open house on location in Stockholm and on location in Malmö on the 4th and 5th of March, if I'm not mistaken. But that's on the website, so you can just
Cool. Very nice, and we'll make sure to link that. Thank you again so much for being our wonderful guest, and we look forward to doing another episode about this school. There's a lot to cover, I think. Yeah, and thank you, Rune, for being my amazing co-host as always. And thank you everyone for listening and watching. So again, send in a voicemail if you have anything to say to us or a comment. And what else? All of the links are in the description. And please listen next week as well. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
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 I felt like I was well equipped. At the game assembly, you learn so many programs already, so you're in the mindset of learning.
It's not just reading theory, it's actually getting in the game engine and working with the games.
The game assembly really prepared me for working in a studio. A lot of the workflow is very similar, but it's in a AAA studio setting, so suddenly everything was very real.
TGA did a really good job of giving me a wide knowledge of what it takes to work in the industry, and I was relieved by that and felt prepared.
When I came to SharkMob, I immediately felt a part of the team in a social way, but also that I actually can create something and have it in the game, and people are satisfied with it. Without TGA, I wouldn't be able to bring something to the table just when I started out.
We solely focus on cooperation first. Every single day they make games together. We make game developers out of our students, and on top of that have discipline strength in designing and making art and programming.